Hello, and welcome to Virtual Investor Conferences. My name is Matt Lateplo, and on behalf of OTC Markets, we're very pleased you have joined us for today's battery and precious metals presentations. Our next live presentation comes from Amex Exploration Inc. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you are interested in scheduling a meeting with Amex Exploration, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You will be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I'm very pleased to welcome Kelly Malcolm, Vice President Exploration of Amex Exploration Inc., which trades on the OTCQX Best Market under the symbol AMXEF and on the TSXV under the symbol AMX. Welcome, Kelly.
Thanks very much for the intro, and thanks everyone for joining in. Amex is a Quebec-based gold-focused exploration company. We have made a number of gold discoveries and also some copper discoveries on our 100% owned Perron project in Quebec. This is the first time that I'll be doing this presentation for the OTC audience. This is it's the Verify platform, so it's going to be a really neat property tour. We'll look at the different deposits, we'll look at the surrounding infrastructure, and ideally when we leave here, you have a really good idea of what this project looks like, where it is, and what the potential is going forward. So I will make forward-looking statements in this presentation, so please be mindful, and you can see this full disclaimer on our website. This has been reviewed by Maxime Bouchard and Jerome Augustin, our QPs. So Amex has a really nice corporate structure. There's 103 million common shares out. There are 0 warrants on the company. It's just shares and less than 5% of the issued common shares and options, which is very tight as well. Market cap between 160 to 190 million, depending on the trading day. We financed the company in February of 2022 with $50 million, rough $49.6 million. That money allows us a complete year all the way through 2023, well into 2024 in terms of being well funded. So there's no financing pressure whatsoever on the company at all. We're in very strong financial position with well over $20 million in the bank. Here we are in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt when this loads up. Just one moment, please. So the Abitibi, for those that don't know, and especially those joining us from the States, is one of the most prolific gold-producing regions globally. It produces very rich, very consistent, and cohesive gold mines. Down to the southwest, we have the Timmins Mining Camp, produced over 70 million ounces, and that's probably a low estimate. Val-d'Or, 20. Kirkland Lake, well over 45 million almost now. Detour Lake, which I used to work at and will be a 30 plus million ounce gold deposit when all is said and done. And as you can see, we're smack dab in the center with the Perron project on what we call the Shikobi Deformation Zone, one of the major deformation zones in the region. As you can see, most, if not all, the gold mines here are associated with those big structural breaks, and the Shikobi Fault is certainly no different, as we've been proving recently. Infrastructure here is also fantastic. We'll talk about that later on, but just on a general note, it takes about 7 hours to drive directly from my condominium in Toronto to the drill site, 8 hours from Montreal directly to the drill site, and you can do this with a Honda Civic if you wanted to. Taking a look at the overall Perron project, this is our main focus, 99.9% of our corporate focus. Right beside us, as you can see, is a town that we call Normantal. We'll look at that shortly, but we are a 10-minute drive from drill to the bakery in town. So it's a really, really awesome area for infrastructure and location. Taking a look at the property itself, we'll take a look at the geology here. It's very, very simple geology on the site, and I'll basically sketch it out for you right now. So in the center here, we have the Beaupre rhyolite. This area is where we're finding essentially all of our gold mineralization to date has been in that area. To the north here, we have what we call the Normatal mine horizon. That's where we found the significant copper mineralization in the QF zone. This whole area down here, sorry, it's different color, is an andesite that has been very, very underexplored. And to the north, we have a big pile or package of volcanic rocks that again have been explored really only for base metal mineralization and not really for gold. So although we've done a ton of drilling, which we'll look at soon, I still think the property is severely underexplored and has lots of room to make new discoveries, especially in some of these untested areas. So the main zones, although we found well over 13 zones to date, the main ones that we've been focused on are detailed here. So, and something also that can be confusing about Amex, and something we're working on helping to clarify, is the number of zones sometimes get confusing to individuals. What I like to do is sort of group them together. So Gratienne, Greycat, Denise are all near surface, lower grade open pit systems. High grade zone, E2 gold zone, to a lesser extent the upper high grade zone, potentially the team zone, are all high grade narrow vein type systems. And then we've got the copper mineralization, the QF zone here, and the central polymetallic zone. So all those different zones really boil down to three different things. And the neat thing about them is they're all within about 3.5 to 4 kilometers from one another. So you can walk literally from the end of the Gratienne zone over here to the tip of the Denise extension over here in the woods in a couple hours. So what I'd like to do is show you what the 300 plus thousand meters of drilling that we've done looks like under these main zones. So this covers, as I mentioned, roughly 3 kilometers of, or sorry, 3.5 to 4 kilometers of strike length along here, and from surface to about 1.4 kilometers vertically. Very much open for additional expansion. As you can see, basically no drilling underneath the Gratienne and Greycat zones, and very little drilling to the east at depth, as well as to the on strike to both the west and to the east. Taking a look at the actual deposits themselves and the gold system, this is a large gold hydrothermal system. There's been a lot of fluid pumped into this package of rocks that has resulted in a very, very well dispersed body of gold. What we're looking at here is just the overall gold trends with no real respect to deposits. What you can see is you can see a hydrothermal conduit that's several hundred meters wide that trends for at least 4 or 5 kilometers along strike. So I think that there's plenty of room to identify additional zones within this large-scale hydrothermal system. So what we'll do is we'll take a look at each of the different zones in a bit more detail here. So we'll start on the west at the Gratienne gold zone. This one it starts directly at surface. There's maybe 1 to 2 meters overburden, so it's a truly superficial gold deposit. It's pretty easy. It starts right at surface. A number of different lenses of gold that have been marked out here with this red color. To find it for roughly 1 kilometer of strike length, down to about 200 meters depth. So this is an easy satellite or starter pit, depending on how the engineers that work on a potential plan here come up with timing, but it should be quite easy to get up and running. And then taking a look at it from the air, it is a really, really simple spot to work. It's bone dry. There's no impediments. There's no lakes, rivers in this area, so it should be very easy to permit on the Gratienne. And as you can see, the road runs directly parallel to the ore body. Taking a look at the Greycat gold zone, which is another discovery we made in 1919-20. This one is really simple. It's, again, starts right at surface, mainly one body of gold, one sort of higher grade panel surrounded by some lower grade mineralization. Again, starts directly at surface. We've drilled this one down to about 300 plus meters, and it's open for expansion as well. Again, easy, what should be an easy area to mine. Just to the west, there's a bit of water here, but for the most part, it's a very dry area. Again, fully road accessible and year-round accessible as well. And then onto the Eastern Gold Zone, which is really been the driver of the company's valuation, I would say, over the past several years. We've made the high grade zone has been spectacular. We'll take a look at some of the drill hole results from the high grade zone. Very, very continuous, very high grade mineralization. And the other one that was a surprise, honestly, as we started advancing more on the property in maybe 2020, is the Denise zone. Is a very, very robust gold system as well, that is showing quite strong continuity as well if we're looking at higher grade within this big broad body. So we'll take a look at those in detail right now. So what we're looking at here is two different lenses of mineralization. We have they're tough to see on this, so I'm going to wiggle it around for a bit so we can look at this in different orientations. The high grade zone, and then we have Denise zone, and then Denise extension. Trending off in this direction here. So we'll take a look at a section of the high grade zone right now to give you some context and some color on what this project or deposit is shaping up to be like. So it's very, very continuous panels of high grade gold, roughly 150 meters of strike length on the actual zone, about 400 meters of strike length from tip to tip over here. Drilled down to well over 1.25 kilometers vertically, and we're seeing strong gold mineralization trending down at depth. And in fact, our most recent results on the high grade zone a few weeks ago confirmed the high grade potential at depth as well. So we think that this system, there's really no signs of it stopping. And what's really neat is, we'll take a look at the Denise section, Denise in a moment as well. But what's neat is that the Denise zone has a slightly shallower dip than the high grade zone, which trends a lot more vertically. So at depth, these two systems may come together, which could be very interesting from a gold enrichment perspective. Here's the Denise zone. So very different. Oh, sorry, we didn't look at the drill hole numbers here. They're spectacular on the high grade zone. We've got an ounce over 6 meters, 100 grams over 6 meters, 30 over 8, 37 over 6, 17 over 7. And this is actually all from one press release that we put out at some point in 2022, I believe. So very, very high grade and very consistent, which is very important when you're looking not only at an underground mine in terms of mine planning and mine development and minimizing dilution, but also from a resource estimation perspective. The more continuous your high grade zones are, the less capping that you have to be worried about as the modelers do their thing and build up the resource. Denise, which is just adjacent to the high grade zone, very different style of gold, much lower grades, however, much bigger widths. So examples here, 65 meters of 1.89, 58 of 1.8 grams, 190 of 1 gram, 1.07 grams, 50 meters of 2.1 grams per ton, 115 of 1.4, and so forth. And what we're doing right now is we're working on the expansion of this zone with very aggressive step outs up to a few kilometers away from the body. And that is because when we look at this in 3 dimensions, the gold system here is constrained by this lower fault that we call the Perron fault to the south. We know that gold mineralization sits on that fault from Gratienne all the way over to Denise. We've never tested this whole eastern extension. We recently drilled about 30 meters of 10 grams over here, which was announced at some point last year. And that really gave us confidence that the system does trend eastward. And we've also been very successful lately on the team zone, which sits here on this northern fault. And the idea here is that potentially, now that we know the northern fault, the Normantel fault up here is mineralized, and the southern Perron fault again, perhaps as these two come together, that could result in some really interesting fluid dynamics in the system. So that's something we're really excited about. That work is ongoing right now. It will be for the remainder of the winter. We're going to get very aggressive on trying to achieve that exploration program. So fingers crossed for some joy from that program as well. But I'm very excited about the prospects. So that is kind of it for the actual gold zones that we'll talk about today, because we are running out of time a wee bit. I would like to bring up the metallurgy here because it is truly spectacular on the high grade zone. Better than 99% recoveries of gold in all three of our composite samples. And the most important thing, I think, is that nearly all of the gold comes out by gravity, which is the most inexpensive and the most environmentally friendly way to extract gold mineralization. So should bode well for future project economics. Just in terms of infrastructure here, it's really stellar. We have full year-round road access to the property, to the project. What we're looking at here is a high transmission power line that runs essentially adjacent to the project, that feeds the Casa Berardi mine to the north. So we know that it's sufficient for mining needs. Here is the town of Normetal in which we operate. This is actually a village of Normetal. It's about 800 residents year-round. It's got all regular sort of small town amenities. We operate out of this facility here. We've got our core storage, our core shack. This is an old reclaimed, this is a fully reclaimed tailings facility that is built directly adjacent to the town and was built for this past producing Normetal mine, which the head frame was situated right about here. So this is a mining town. It doesn't have a mine. A lot of the workers work up at the Hecla's Casa Berardi mine, as well as in the lumber industry to the south, in Lasar. So I think that we have a lot of community support for this project, and would, as we continue down the permitting path. And I think at that point, with about 12 minutes left, we'll switch over to the Q&A, because there's quite a few questions that came in here. So I can just start with the queue. So thanks everyone for listening to that, and feel free to ask anything here on the chat, because time will run out quickly. Maiden resource planned, and when, if so? Yes, maiden resource is planned. We're planning it for 2023. The objective is to complete the winter drilling program, as well as some requisite drilling in the spring, as guided by the resource modeling consultants that we utilize, and do the database cutoff, provided that that we're comfortable with everything at that point. The only reason, and Victor has guided this in the past, if we make a stellar discovery, we really want to incorporate that into the resource, that would be a delay. But if we did that, we would provide guidance to the market via press release or interviews. But yes, we do plan to do one this year. What available data points to that drilling east? What available data points? What available data is there that drilling east of Denise will provide in a more extended mineralized zone? That one I can prove quite easily, Carlson. If we look at this, historically there was gold hit already over there, so I know that there is gold there. So in some of these drill holes here, they're a bit tough to see on this screen, I think, for you guys, but historical holes hit here, and that's significantly east of Denise by well above 1 kilometer. So we know that is there. So it's a question of is there a deposit over there, but there's certainly gold mineralization over there anyways. How many drill rigs are active at the moment? Are there any plans on changing this number in the future? Right now, there's 4 drills going on the project. Yes, there are plans to change that. In fact, the plans, we're going to probably bring a 5th in the next week or so to go work on the team zone a bit more. aggressively. So yes, we'll change that fluidly. We are fully funded for the year. Um, we actually have to spend all of the flow through money that we raised last year. So we will be spending that money, and we will be continuing drilling, and if need be, either by budget or by interest in drilling off a certain area, we will increase or decrease that number accordingly. Hello, any plans for an eventual spin out of an NSR like Great Bear did? Honestly, I can't really speak to that. Um, yeah, and it's not really my forte, so that would be a question for Victor. You could certainly reach out to the company on our website, and we can arrange a phone call. But I can't speak to that question. Sorry. Again, has there been any more work done trying to find more areas to drill using the tree? Yes, I love this question. So, has there been more work done looking for new targets essentially by using the tree bark method that we did over the past summer? If so, what might those areas be? So, I have a two-part answer for that. Number one is we did the tree bark work in the late summer and early fall. We also did an MMI survey, or mobile metal ion survey, which is a different geochemical survey. We are waiting for the results from the MMI to come in. We have received most of the results from the bark sampling. We have a really good geochemist interpreting those. He'll also interpret the MMI results, and we'll put out a press release showing those different targets when we have all that information in hand and interpreted. So, and that's something I'm really excited about. So, thanks for that. Pre-feasibility when? Too early to answer that question, unfortunately. Sorry. So we would do the PEA after we did the resource, and then following that, the next steps would be pre-feasibility and then feasibility study, and permitting as well. Lab delays seem to be a problem. Could we get some updated information on this? And have you considered building a core prep shack to mitigate this? They are a problem. They're not as bad as they were even a couple months ago. They have certainly improved, but I think it's slow for everyone across the board. But they have improved for us. And the question is, have I considered building a core prep shack? I would love to. There's some issues though with using. It's nice to have all external lab data, especially pre-resource. If we were a mining company or we had the maiden resource already built up, then I would feel more comfortable. But at this stage, I like I like having external people doing all of that work to keep that quality of data in place, at least at these early stages. But certainly as we continue advancing, I would put a full assay lab in once we have that resource done. And yes, so good question. Thank you. Sorry. I like the resumes and skills. The management team. What metrics or situations would cause you decide to take the project all the way to production yourselves? Good question. Economic results, of course, would be the first step to look at. We will continue to advance the project. We will bring in mine builders. We are an exploration company. Our team has we're good at looking for gold. We're good at finding gold, and working the projects beyond that. To build a mine, we honestly would probably need a mine focused COO. We may need a new VP. Could replace me. Could replace Victor. We certainly are. We just want to see the project succeed. Whether that's us doing it with supplementary team, whether that's a different team doing it, we're certainly open, and we're all shareholders, and we want what's best for the company here. Paul you mentioned that you have financing that takes you till the end of 2023. What are your plans for financing in 2024? We're an exploration company. We don't have revenues. We have to finance the company to advance the company. So we will do financing at some point, but we certainly have no need to do so. The budget that we have developed, and this is very forward looking because it's speculative, but the budget that we have developed will take us well into 2024, I think to May or June, without having any need to finance whatsoever. So we would do it as the market dictates. We've been quite good with timing on financing so far, and we hope to continue that trend going forward. Are there any royalties on your property? Yes, there are some royalties in place, scattered across the project, ranging from 0.5 up to 2.5%, I believe. But there are no royalties registered on the property, so that's a discussion for another date. Whether or not they're valid is something that we're looking into. One of your releases shows a new zone called N110. Could I speak to that at all? Sure. It's an area that we've sort of identified through compilation recently. There were some historical hits. We reinterpreted our magnetics, identified some structures, got excited about it. We are drilling it right now. That's about all I can speak to so far, but happy to talk about it further in a future release or a future presentation. Estimation maiden resource. Unfortunately, I can't speculate to that. There are a number of analysts that do that, though. So you could check with some of those different groups. How many meters already drilled on the different projects? We've done about 300,000+ meters of drilling here, and plan to keep drilling to expand further. Are there NSRs? Answered that. Thought to spin out, answered that one. Do you have any ground geophysics plan for the project? Maybe. It's not super effective because we're looking for quartz veins within a rhyolite, so there's not a very good contrast in terms of resistivity. And the main sulfide associated with the gold is sphalerite, which performs poorly with EM, although we have done some ground geophysics targeting the VMS mineralization. Anthony Fitzgerald says tree bark method. It's a geochemical method where you sample spruce bark. The idea is that gold ions travel through the root systems in the groundwater, get sucked up into the root systems, and it provides a vector for mineralization. It's actually quite a common exploration technique nowadays. What about the system gives it so many different styles of mineralization? Open pit, vein underground, and VMS. Quite unique to me based on what I've seen. So it's a VMS area. This was found by a company looking for VMS mineralization in the late 90s. So the VMS, there's a huge VMS deposit just beside us, Normetal. So no surprise there. The open pit versus underground, it's because of different alteration present within the rock. So in the softer, more dilational rock, we get more disseminated gold, which would be more open pit. In the more massive silicified rock, that's where you get the higher grade vein type systems. Sorry, I'm rushing here. Does AMX own any other projects? Yes, we do. 2 other properties. They're on our website, East Main and the Cameron project. Beside lab delays, what has been your biggest struggle this year? Honestly, the gold market has been a struggle for most juniors. We are working to increase market awareness in the company, so hopefully can rectify that going forward. Please do more webinars. Thank you. We will. How many holes are currently awaiting assays? I don't know off the top of my hand, but it's many thousand samples at the lab. When will AMX pour its first ounce? I don't know, but hopefully someday in the near future. Any guess at costs? No, unfortunately not with economics. What were high grades? Many multi-ounce intervals over 3, 4, 5 meters on a regular basis. I'm really rushing here. Are there plans to start promoting the company more? Absolutely. We would like to advance the company, of course, as shareholders and management. So we do plan to do a lot more conferences and web updates. What would make the current NSR invalid or not applicable? Honestly, it's too detailed of a thing to talk. Oh, we're done here, I believe. Um, oh, oh, we're still live. Okay. So it's an old royalty that's not registered with the government. So I don't know the answer to that. Um, yeah, and but it is there's an NSR on the project right now. Yes. I thought I was going to get cut off here, but it doesn't look like I will. So sorry for rushing. If I didn't answer anyone's questions, oh, okay. Time to wrap up. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I really appreciate it. I wish you all a wonderful day, and feel free to reach out to the company with any questions, and look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.